Famous people and celebrities who passed away in 1976 in the United States. This is the first episode. Before we proceed, please subscribe to our channel to support us. Paul Robeson. He was born in April 1898 and he died in January 1976. His age was 77 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was stroke complications. Paul Robeson was an American-based baritone concert artist, actor, professional football player, and activist who became famous both in his cultural accomplishments and for his political stances. In 1915, Robeson won an academic scholarship to Rutgers College in New Brunswick, New Jersey, where he was the only African-American student. While at Rutgers, he was twice named a consensus All-American in football and was elected class valedictorian. He earned his LLB from Columbia Law School while playing in the National Football League. After graduation, he became a figure in the Harlem Renaissance with performances in Eugene O'Neill's The Emperor Jones and All God's Children Got Wings. Robeson performed in Britain in the touring melodrama Voodoo in 1922 and in Emperor Jones in 1925. In 1928, he scored a major success in the London premiere of Showboat. Living in London for several years with his wife, Eslanda, he continued to establish himself as a concert artist and starred in a London production of Othello, the first of 3 productions of the play over the course of his career. He also gained attention in Sanders of the River in 1935 and in film production of Showboat in 1936. Howlin' Wolf. He was born in June 1910 and he died in January 1976. His age was 65 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was a combination of tumor, heart failure, and kidney disease. Howlin' Wolf was an American blues singer, guitarist, and harmonica player. He was the forefront of transforming acoustic Delta blues into electric Chicago blues, and over a 4-decade career, recorded blues, rhythm and blues, rock and roll, and psychedelic rock. He is regarded one of the most influential blues musicians of all time. Born into poverty in Mississippi, Burnett, he became a protege of Delta blues musician Charlie Patton in the 1930s. In the Deep South, he began a solo career by performing with other notable blues musicians of the day. By the end of the decade, he had established himself in the Mississippi Delta following a number of legal issues, a stint in prison, and army service. He was recruited by A&R man Ike Turner to record for producer Sam Phillips in Memphis. His first record, Morning at Midnight in 1951, led to a record deal with Jazz Records in Chicago. His reputation grew throughout the blues revival of the 1960s, and he continued to perform until November 1975, when he performed for the last time alongside fellow blues musician B.B. King. Jim Grainer. He was born in June 1919 and he died in January 1976. His age was 56 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was cancer. Jim Grainer was a weeknight sports anchor for Cleveland NBC affiliate KYW-TV beginning in 1957. He also served as a color commentator for the Cleveland Browns radio network, most notably alongside Cleveland sportscaster Gimp Shanley. Grainer was known for his dry wit and unflappable personality, to the point where his fellow broadcasters would often attempt to shake his on-air persona. During one such instance, weatherman Joe Finnan placed a woman wearing a raincoat in front of Grainer during one of their nightly broadcasts. As soon as Grainer began, the woman took off the raincoat and revealed that she was wearing nothing underneath. Grainer remarked, "I had the Browns playing the Indians." Joking aside, Jim Grainer was considered dignified, low-key, the thinking fans broadcaster, the silver-haired and gentleman sportscaster with maintained idle looks. Also hosted his own summer series, Golf with prose. Colleagues and viewers were both shocked and saddened by his early death in 1976. Ernesto Miranda. He was born in March 1941 and he died in January 1976. His age was 34 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was stabbing. Ernesto Miranda was an American laborer whose criminal conviction was set aside in the landmark United States Supreme Court case Miranda versus Arizona, which ruled that criminal suspects must be informed of their right against self-incrimination and their right to consult with an attorney before being questioned by police. This warning is known as a Miranda warning. Miranda have been convicted for kidnapping, rape, and armed robbery charges based on his confession under police interrogation. After the Supreme Court decision invalidated Miranda's initial conviction, the state of Arizona tried him again at the second trial. With his confession excluded from evidence, he was convicted. He was sentenced to 20 to 30 years in prison, but was paroled in 1972. After his release, he returned to the old neighborhood and made modest living autographing police officers' Miranda cards that contained the text of the warning for reading to arrestees. Miranda was stabbed to death during an argument in a bar in Phoenix, Arizona on January 31, 1976. A Mexican man, Ezequiel Moreno Perez, was charged with the murder of Miranda but fled to Mexico and has never been located. John Gould Moyer. He was born in July 1893 and he died in January 1976. His age was 82 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. John Gould Moyer was a United States Navy Rear Admiral and the governor of American Samoa from June 5, 1942 to February 8, 1944. He was born in Chicago, Illinois, but lived in both Indiana and Hawaii for much of his life. Moyer was admitted to the United States Naval Academy on June 16, 1910, and became an ensign shortly upon graduation. He became a commander in 1934, a captain in 1939, and eventually a rear admiral. During his governorship, Moyer recommended the tour of duty of the men under his command be reduced and took over command of the United States Marines barracks previously under the control of Brigadier General Henry Louis Larson. Moyer was admitted to the United States Naval Academy on June 16, 1910 as an ensign. He served on the USS South Carolina in 1917. He was promoted to the rank of commander in 1934, and President of the United States Franklin Roosevelt recommended Moyer for the rank of captain in 1939. He eventually became a rear admiral and retired on June 30, 1949. George Whipple. He was born in August 1878 and he died in February 1976. His age was 97 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. George Whipple was an American physician, pathologist, biomedical researcher, and medical school educator and administrator. Whipple shared the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine in 1934 with George Richards Minot and William Perry Murphy for their discoveries concerning liver therapy in case of anemia. This makes Whipple the first of several Nobel laureates affiliated with the University of Rochester. In 1905, Whipple joined the pathology department at Johns Hopkins School of Medicine. As an assistant in pathology, he was promoted successively to assistant instructor, associate, and associate professor in pathology until he left in 1914. During this time, he spent a year in Panama at Ancon Hospital as a pathologist. In Panama, he worked with the Samuel Darling, a resident pathologist, and General Gargas to gain experience in tropical diseases. This experience afforded him the opportunity to study massive hemolysis associated with blackwater fever. Before returning to Johns Hopkins School of Medicine after his time in Panama, Whipple traveled to Europe and spent time in the laboratories of Krahl and Morawitz in Heidelberg, where he learned about anemia in rabbits. Leland H. Jenks. He was born in April 1892 and he died in February 1976. His age was 83 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. Leland H. Jenks was an American economic historian, professor of economics and sociology at Wellesley College and professor at Columbia University, where he taught economic history. He is known for his work on the economic history of the migration of British capital and of the American Railroad in the 19th century. In 1917, Jenks had started his academic career as an instructor in history at the University of Minnesota. From 1919 to 1920, he was an assistant professor of history and political and social sciences at Clark College. Before his year in London, back in the States, he became associate professor of history and social and economic institutions at Amherst College. In 1926, he was appointed professor of history at Rollins College before moving to Wellesley College, where in 1930 he was appointed professor of social institutions. He was awarded a Guggenheim Fellowships in 1936. Thanks for watching the video. Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Have a nice day.